Hello, everybody. This is Kelley Franke, licensed marriage and family therapist. And today's Lauren Rosen and I are going to be talking about just right OCD on purely OCD. Sorry, I had a little bit of a issue with the mic, so I'm here. Just a quick reminder, this is not a replacement for therapy. This is, I can't hear you. Sorry guys, hold on. Lauren's sound is not working.
So weird.
There we go. But now you're frozen. Technology, everybody. Yes. No. Nothing. Nothing, Schultz.
Nothing?
Oh, there you go.
Hello. Oh, wait, you can hear me?
Yeah,
Ooh,
but
the
you're
internet
really
connection.
frozen.
Yeah, you too, man. It's like, oh, I can see
Really?
you now. You're moving. There's like a delay. There's a significant delay. I don't know
Okay.
whose end it's on though. So maybe it's me. Maybe it's not a replacement for therapy. It's for educational purposes only. I
Yeah,
finished your
that's
sentence
right.
and I felt really
Thank you.
excited about that, and then you couldn't hear
Yes.
me. So
Oh, okay.
thanks for joining
Yes.
us, ladies and gentlemen. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have my daughter here, just so everyone knows. If she walks in, then that's the end of the show.
Also, there happens to be people installing a window in the other room. So if you hear construction noise, that's what that is. So we're
Yes.
kind of doing it live today, people.
We are,
as we
literally.
talk about just right OCD.
Yes. So, and we are going to probably keep it under 30 minutes or so. So,
Yep.
anyways, welcome. We are here doing it live. We're going to talk about just right.
Yes. I was just thinking about
Do you want to
Goldilocks
start?
and the Three Bears,
Yes.
right?
Oh,
This
good
one's
old Goldie.
just right. I know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. This one's too small. This one's too big, but this one is just right.
Just right. Porridge, too hot, too cold? Mm-mm. Just right.
Mm-mm.
And yeah, so a lot of this sort of subtype is about hitting that just right feeling. I mean, that's the basis of it, right? And it can hit in pretty much any of the content areas too, right? Like you
Yes,
can have to
thank
do
you.
things just right in order to make sure that you're in the right relationship, or just right to make sure that your family don't die, or whatever the case may be. It hops around. It's a part of the
Yes.
concentric circles,
Mm-hmm. They're all in there, folks.
all in there. So
So that being said, what would be a common one? Well, it's one that you normally see.
one thing that comes up is this in the context of religious scrupulosity, right? Like, so somebody will have an intrusive thought about God, maybe, and that's bad, and like maybe something sexual or something like that, or violent.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll have to redo things until they feel just right,
Right.
so that they can move on. So that's the tricky thing here, is like common obsessions really could be any sort of obsession, right? It's the compulsion really that's got to be just right. Do you know?
Yes, I do know. Totally.
Of course you
That's
know,
it.
because
I
you're a
know.
boss.
Well, and I'm sure that you've experienced it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Just a nagging feeling that something's off. I mean, that's all of OCD.
right. Something's off.
Yeah.
It can definitely come up in ways. I think that's pretty. I feel like I see it a lot in kids too, right? Where it's like, if I don't write this word just right, then something bad is going to happen to my family, right? Or if I don't, which I've used this as an example because it's a common one for me. It's like if I don't get whatever it is done, like finish folding a towel or finish eating a meal, it could be anything, walking around the block. By the time the phone rings, then something bad's going to happen. But it could be, and that could also be choose your own adventure. We don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think to your point, it's just like this idea, it's almost what you were talking about just there is like verging into just the magical thinking realm of like, and I think there's a ton of crossover between the two.
Yes. Agreed. I have to feel just right. But the thing is you're never going to feel just right. And if you do, well, you're going to be chasing down a dream, as Tom Petty would say.
Chasing down a dream, Tom Petty. It's true, though, because you only get it for a moment, and then everything will start to feel wrong again, or you'll have to do it again, and you'll have to flick the lights on and off until it feels just right, or lock the door. That's one where it comes up quite a bit, right? Like some of the more physical checking compulsions related to home invasion, right? You have to hear the lock click just a certain way, or you're afraid that it's not actually locked.
Right. Really common one for sure.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of perfectionism involved as well.
Agreed.
So it's like even with exposures, right? Like I have to do this exposure just right, or I'm not doing it right, which means then I'm not going to get better.
Yeah, and that's a scary one, right? Oh my gosh! But what if I don't get better because I don't do it just right?
I have to feel the right amount of anxiety.
Yep.
Sweet spot. Anyways.
Sweet spot. Sweet spot.
So, sorry for my lack of energy. I feel like I'm really dragging today. Wake up, Kelley. Wake up.
Okay. Should we like do jumping jacks or something?
Burpees.
Okay, burpees. I've never quite gotten the burpee down.
We are going to burpee then because, wow. It's a game changer between sessions. Really wakes you up.
Yeah. Right in the noggin.
Right in the cardiovascular
system. By the way, if anyone has any questions about Just Right OCD and all of that, feel free to throw them into that question mark box to the right of the comments, and we're to do our best as we go. Oh, I think it's in Kelley. Kelley, are you there?
Sorry about that. My grandma called.
Aw, hi Grandma.
So I had to hang up on her. Anyways, she'll understand. Or she won't.
I'm sure. Or she won't. So yeah, drop your questions if you've got any. We're happy to, to answer questions about Just Right and your experience. Somebody just asked, do we have a podcast that you can listen into?
So we have on IGTV, both of us, at the Obsessive Mind and Obsessive Compulsive Treatment. If you go to the IGTV link section,
the
on our
icon.
page, the little icon, and you click it like this, it'll show you our channel at Purely OCD, and then we also have a YouTube channel.
That's accurate. That's true. We have our own YouTube channel.
Yep.
So I'll maybe add a link to that later. So if you want to subscribe there, you can. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah. So then compulsions for Just Right.
Well, I think, haven't we been talking about compulsions though? That's the thing. I feel like there's really not much to talk about in the way of obsessions,
right?
Because it can attach to freaking anything. It can be,
right.
I do think it tends to come up more with the organizational. And I do think that if I don't do this, I'll feel off, right? Like that could be
Oh,
an
for sure.
obsession. Yeah.
Just the
And I'll,
feeling. It doesn't mean something bad will happen.
right, right. And that can be the sort of primary concern, is that you're just going to have that feeling ongoing forever. And that's uncomfortable and you don't want to have that. So you do the thing, right? Like you have to, and it could be even something as simple as, in terms of compulsions, like I need to adjust this thing on my desk. And we see with Symmetry OCD that everything has to be symmetrical and organized in that way. With Just Right, it could have absolutely no rhyme or reason. It just, that's where it belongs. So it needs to be there in order to feel right. It's different from obsessive compulsive personality disorder, where it's like it belongs there and it should be there. And if it's not there, then why'd you move it,
Everyone's
idiot?
a bunch of idiots. Yeah.
Right.
This is your problem, not mine.
Yes. Yeah. Somebody asked, by the way, if the comments get saved. I don't think that they
They
do.
don't. We've tried.
No,
Yeah, I've actually looked it up, unless I'm missing something.
no, I don't think so.
Or the
It's not
questions, anyways. The comments definitely don't get saved.
right. That's true. Yeah, it's not like on YouTube or some of the other forums where the whole chat thread gets saved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So
Really
ahead.
quickly, though, because you brought up some Symmetry OCD, is that I guess I feel like it's kind of a crossover, though, of Just Right, right? Like they're looking for the just right feeling, because we don't know, like, if it's actually symmetrical.
That's true.
I don't
Right.
know.
No,
If we're
I
really
think you're
splitting
right.
hairs, I
Yes,
think
I
there's a
mean,
just right quality to it.
absolutely. And sometimes
Right.
it is just, I'm going to feel uncomfortable if that pillow is not in the right place. So I'm just going to put it in the place where it feels comfortable, which is fine until you have to keep going back and moving all of the pillows. And let's say, I don't know, you have children, good luck, right? Or pets, or, it's right. This is where I think OCD is on a spectrum. And like some of at the, like if it was just that, if it remained at, I need to move my pillow to a certain degree every single night so that I feel comfortable, we wouldn't diagnose OCD probably, because it probably wouldn't be that time consuming. It wouldn't be that distressing. It's as it builds up over time that it becomes a problem. And suddenly you have to make all of these things feel just right, or else. That sounded
Right.
ominous.
I keep
Yeah.
saying right, and it's weird to say
Right.
right and just right.
Right. Right.
Genevieve keeps saying, Mommy, you sound like a valley girl. I was
my
like, oh,
gosh.
please, Lord, don't just tell me every time I sound like one of those. Please,
I know.
please.
I say like so much. I've been trying,
Nothing
but
against valley girls either. It's
my
just,
mother
it's the
was an
clueless
original
voice.
Valley girl.
Was she?
Yeah, she grew up in Woodland Hills, the valley, the San Fernando Valley. And it's not the only valley. There are lots of other valleys on this planet, as it turns out.
She is amazing, though. Not
Yeah,
like I'm
she's pretty
saying
great.
it. She does not sound like a valley girl.
Like I do.
Yeah. Stay on the rails. So,
Stay on the rails.
okay.
I did notice that somebody had mentioned that asked, and just as a reminder, if you're here and you want to answer a question answered, throw it in the question mark box so we don't have to scroll through and waste your time trying to find questions. But does
We
OCD
do
cause
have a
black?
few.
Oh, and you have some too? Yeah.
We do, but I just was wondering if we want to answer them at the end, like normally, because usually
Yes.
this is the part where we go into exposure stuff, right?
That's such a good point. Yes. Thank you for keeping me on the rails. Please go on.
Unless it's pertinent to this moment.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay, let's pin that one because we're coming back
Pin.
to you.
Pin.
Exposures were
Exposures.
just right. Well, does anyone have any idea what the exposure would be here?
Oh, I like this.
Just
This is
wrong.
make it just wrong. Yeah, please feel free to leave a little comment. This is our Q&A for you, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
What? Yeah, we got to do it like Jeopardy, right?
Do, 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 do,
Do,
do,
do,
do, do.
do.
Um,
So,
so I think with just right, if it were, let's talk about symmetry, the idea of just sort of putting things in a
off
symmetrical
kilter.
order, right? Like, yeah, that you would put it off kilter on purpose. And then, yes,
You guys are
yes,
killing it.
killed it. Sit with the uncomfortable feeling. That is it.
Also, don't do it is one of my favorites.
It's a trap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
don't move it. Just leave it and make
Leave
sure.
it.
In fact, quite I think that the exposure is to do everything as you said, just wrong. Just a
That's right.
little bit wrong. Like make sure that it's a little bit off. And that's a really cool thing that you can sort of incorporate into your life ongoing as relapse prevention is how can you make sure to do something like a little bit off? I do that with running sometimes. And it also
Ah,
is like
keep
is
yourself on
good
your
for
toes.
well, for sure, exactly. And it's good for challenging any sort of like body and eating noise too for people who suffer in that
Right.
realm. But if I'm running and I'm like, oh, I want to run that extra 0.05 miles because then it's going to be at an even, like it's going to be the even
Yeah.
number, then, and I'll just be like, nope, not doing it.
Yeah, we're
I'm
not
going to
doing that.
leave 0.01 miles left. Ha.
Do it.
Done. Screw
Yes.
you, OCD. Bite me. That's my exposure.
Oh man, bite me for
Truly.
sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If
What about you?
just right, if the just right is being, I would say, driven out of this fear that something horrific is going to happen if you don't do whatever it is, that an imaginal would be good here,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
I didn't do this, and my therapist told me to too, and I listened. Well, you don't have to say that, but I just felt like putting that out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But just making the imaginal, right? Like this thing's going to happen
Yep.
because I didn't close the door just right
Yeah. Yeah.
to this feeling.
This one, do you see a lot of sort of guilt presenting with this around those types of compulsions? I hear so often this idea of like, but it's selfish not to do something if I think it could have, even if I think it's really unlikely that it could save somebody. It could.
I definitely hear the moral scrupulosity stuff, right? It's like harm reduction, right? Like, well, if it's in my control to check one more time, like, isn't it worth it? Because I could save whatever it is, save that
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
Or, right, check to see if the gas, right, is like making sure the stove is off and that
Yep.
it's like some moral obligation.
Right. Right. Because, and you may have missed it because it doesn't feel just right. That's so often the case, right? Like you just, especially like we were talking about earlier with the compulsions in this type is like, but it feels off. Got to go back. Got to go back because otherwise I'm a jerk because I can't be bothered to go back for 5 seconds and save my mother's life or something,
Right. Or
which
your
of course is
dog.
not true, but you have to be able to, yeah, or your dog. You have to be willing to embrace that. Yeah, maybe you are.
So you know what I would do for me, and
What?
I have done, is been
I
like,
love it.
well, I'm really excited today about killing everybody in the house, and then just walk out that door
Just
with
do
my
it.
shoulders back and my stomach in
Yep.
to the floor.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I always notice for me personally when this one comes up, I'm like, ooh, I can tell that my resting anxiety is kind of going up,
Yeah. Yep.
and maybe some others are gonna come in.
Welcome. Have you met the others?
Have you met the others? They're all here waiting for you.
They're all here.
So,
No, that's so true.
anyways,
I'm the same way, except for with with sort of organizational stuff. If I find that
Oh,
I
yeah.
really
No.
want to go through every room in my home and just purge and make sure that everything is in its place, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, interesting. I don't usually give into it these days. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna push something out of place and walk away. But
Yes. I think every once in a while I do it and then I'm like, oh shoot,
oh
this got
yeah,
out of hand really quickly.
whoa,
Like
15
what
hours
in the
later,
hell is going on? And I
you
think
haven't
we
eaten anything,
texted
you
each
haven't had any
other. Yeah.
water. You're like, when will the lamb stop screaming? Like that's where you're at after a cleaning binge. And then you're like, oh, wow, that was definitely my
Yeah.
anxiety. I didn't really need to
Damn.
go. Yes, we've totally texted each other, by the way, in one of those moments. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Should we answer some questions?
Sure. You're
Uh,
keeping us on the rails today, Toodle. So
I am. I am. That's because I have to be responsible.
be
I
the
am going to
responsible adult.
steer this ship.
Yeah. So
Okay.
wait, do you have questions?
Well, there was a question you were going and I didn't want to.
Oh yeah.
I think we
There
should
was
just do that
something
one first.
up at the top about black and white thinking. Does
Okay.
OCD cause black and white thinking that cause obsessive overthinking?
I think OCD is very black and white. I don't know if there's any in between. It's either good or bad, and that's the whole thing is we're trying to teach people how to do middle path. It's like, well,
Yeah,
can we think of this more rationally?
totally.
And that maybe there's a
Yeah,
little good and a little bad.
right. And it can't be right enough. It has to be just right. That's OCD.
Right.
Yeah, it is very black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that the other part of the question, like cause of obsessive overthinking, well, I think that we're probably talking about compulsive overthinking here, right? Like where you're just doing something to try and make sure that your worry thought is not going to come true. I don't know, like black and white thinking certainly can encourage
Mm-hmm.
uh, overthinking or,
Yes.
yeah, compulsive overthinking for
Yeah.
sure.
That
Uh,
is definitely true.
yeah, I'm a bad person, right? Like that's a very all or none thought. And
Right.
if you then start churning about it for, 45 minutes to make sure that what you said wasn't offensive, yeah, that's probably the initial thought that kind of got you and the
Right.
anxiety.
Yep. You got it. Nailed it.
You did. Nailed it.
Okay. So that one we got. Let's just delete that one. Okay. So a few people actually did ask about the black and white. Separate people asked about the
Oh,
black and
interesting.
white thinking. Does OCD cause black and white thinking? Yes.
Well, life causes
Um,
black and white thinking, right? Like just throwing that out there real quick because I think everyone engages in black and white thinking. I think it's very evolutionarily beneficial to be able to think efficiently, to be able to make snap judgments. It's just that efficient doesn't mean accurate. In fact, my husband just bought a book that I've read parts of, but not the whole thing, called Thinking Fast and Slow by an economist, Daniel Kahneman. I think he won the Nobel Prize for that book. Yeah. And the whole idea is there's two types of thinking, type 1, type 2. Type 1 is jump to conclusions quick, and it tends toward this.
guilty.
Guilty. Well, the thing is, we both do both, right? And you can train yourself. You're not going to stop yourself from having those type 1 thoughts because that's how our brains work. But type
Yeah.
2 thinking is this sort of methodical considering after the fact where you're like,
Slow down the
well,
machine a bit.
yeah, slow it
Nothing is
down.
urgent.
Yeah, yeah. Take a deep breath, machine, That's whatever machines do. That's
Are you there? Did I lose you?
I'm here. I don't know. Did you
Okay.
lose me? Can you hear me?
I gotcha. Okay, so this person, I think, you know, this person's one was about black and white.
Hmm.
Um, but I can't list both the questions, but I think it was, black and white thinking with OCD, especially with diet and good and bad foods, chemicals, etc. Yes.
Mm, yeah.
Lauren, you want to take this one?
I'm like,
This
what?
is your.
Um,
She's like, okay, I'm right
Good
here.
and bad foods. You tell the food police to shut up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it depends too on, so is this OCD or are we like veering into the realm of eating disorder? And certainly there's some overlap with
Well,
orthorexia. And yeah, and I think I made
and
mention.
eating disorder.
Right. I think generally, I think I mentioned to you the other day that I was like, I'm really seeing more and more how much uncertainty factors into especially restrictive or binge purge eating disorders, like the desire to try to manage and control your weight and the
Right.
unwillingness to accept uncertainty around that. But I think that this idea of good and bad foods is so much about the all or none that we've been talking about in our culture. It's it's socially sanctioned. It's like chocolate bad, broccoli good, right? And
Right. All
did you steal
organic,
it?
whole food. No, yeah. Did you steal it?
I'm just saying,
Probably.
well, if you stole it, maybe that's something to look at, right? Like that's probably that's moral, that's good or bad, maybe, or at least
Maybe, right? It's a gray area because, well, let's not get into the philosophy of everything. But
absolutely. I'm just saying that it's
yes,
more inclined toward that. Like you might
totally.
make a moral judgment based on stealing, whereas what foods you put into your body, like some are more nutrient dense, some are less so. Some, but
True.
some
And I
are,
think this is where orthorexia comes in, though, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's like, well, but it should be the right one, especially like, say you have kids, like that's where the guilt too can come, right?
mm,
I'm causing them cancer because I'm giving them something with pesticides in it.
right, right.
Anyways, that was
No,
sideways. Sorry, keep going.
no, that was it. I mean, that's you crushed it. It's true. Um, so the original question though was just about how the good and
So
bad.
especially black and white, especially with diet and good and bad foods, chemicals, etc. Bad
Yeah,
food chemicals, which I think we answered. Okay,
I think so.
so do you want to do one more?
Sure.
So this one's can you read it or no?
I
Do
can't
you
see
see it?
it.
Okay. So this one's kind of general, but I think it's an important topic is how to describe symptoms to a psychiatrist when the content of thoughts are shameful.
Hmm.
Well, I think that first of all, it's very hard to find a psychiatrist and a therapist for that matter that specializes in OCD. So I think that shame can become even greater in those situations because sometimes people will end up having to educate the psychiatrist on what
Yep.
OCD is, which is never a fun experience.
No.
And just to start, OCD is full of shame, right? So then to go in somewhere and meeting a brand new person, like a perfect stranger, and disclosing content is my hope is that when we are vulnerable and share something that we have tons of shame around, that that person will respond well. However, there is no guarantee that that will happen,
Unfortunately.
unfortunately. So we can't give direct advice here on this. I do have an opinion about it, but
Well, yeah, and I think I actually I would I do have I think a recommendation around this just in terms of if you are going to see a psychiatrist, I would encourage you to talk to the therapist that you're working with who specializes in OCD, hopefully, if you have OCD, so that they can maybe preemptively contact the psychiatrist and educate them if the psychiatrist doesn't know, right? Like that there's an opportunity or like can send over articles, right? Because I think especially with some of the more taboo themes, people are horrendously misinformed.
Yeah, they are.
And, there's enough shame. Right? We don't need medical professionals adding to the shame. And of course, I don't think it's willful that the ignorance there, right? Like we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to inform people so that they can respond in a way that is supportive and
Absolutely.
not that the person should be, responsible for that, but that's the sad reality, as you pointed out sometimes.
And this person's asking specifically how to describe symptoms. So I don't know if you necessarily need to get into content if it's, somebody where you don't have a therapist, and maybe it does take more time to kind of build trust within that psychiatrist of like, okay, at the beginning of the conversation, you just say a little bit and then see how they respond. And right?
Yeah,
Test the waters, my friend.
that's so on point. That's right.
But
Absolutely.
offering resources to, yeah, I mean, some people never tell their content, but you do need to tell your therapist because that's how it all works.
For sure. No, that's such a good point. Like you don't have to tell anyone, except for it's probably a good idea to tell your therapist so that they can help normalize and also help you do the exposure work necessary to support yourself. Crushed it.
Okay, so this person said, let's just do one more if it's okay, because they said that the question accidentally got kicked out.
Oh, okay.
Okay, had a question but accidentally got kicked out of here twice and lost it. So now I'm going to say how much I love this. Oh, thank you. I thought it was a question.
No, I think that
Okay,
there is a question. Is it Naomi?
yes. Oh, and it
Is it?
says,
Go ahead.
yeah, is it normal to have a flood of OCD thoughts after a night of drinking or getting drunk? What if I did this and I don't remember? Oh my God, I hate this one. Mother
Mofo.
of God.
I know, man. Yes, yes, that does come up. I think it's a little bit difficult because if you do actually black out, right, then that's not a wholly it's not a wholly inappropriate anxiety to potentially reconsider your behaviors in the future because it's probably not a good call to be in certain
Blackout.
situations and black out, right? Like that's probably a healthy, not again, not that you should then try to figure out what all happened, but it should probably inform you moving forward, which healthy, you know, guilt and anxiety can do. Like if we go like, oh, this is a sign that I did something that I'm not thrilled about that I'd like to change in the future. But go ahead. You were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think this is, this is a pretty common one too, even if there's not a blackout. It's just like the feeling of being tipsy can kick up that fear as well. And I think the fear, like when you're kind of in a daze and you're really tired or waking up, I've seen a lot of clients get triggered by that.
Well, anything that you don't
But
have an
yeah.
explicit memory around, right? Like even down to like checking compulsions. If you don't have that explicit, almost image oriented memory around a situation, you might start to think, well, did I really lock that? And I think it's no different. The only difference is that if you've had some sort of substance, there's the recognition that you might not have your faculties around you as much, even to your point, if you don't black out.
I've had actually multiple clients where if they're having a panic attack and they have like feelings of dissociation, they get super triggered. It's like their main trigger. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's because they really are kind of detached from their body and they don't remember sometimes parts of it. So, yeah, like you had said, it's the lacking of a concrete memory.
Yeah.
And the more you check for a memory, the worse it gets.
And you can be
blurrier.
stone cold sober. And I
Yeah.
actually just posted about this the other day, right? Like I speak at this from personal experience where I spent years trying to relive one evening where I ate a piece of tiramisu, right? Like over and over. Like
damn
I
tiramisu.
couldn't remember what I felt in that moment, and that, it's a bugger.
Right. It is a bugger. Okay. So unfortunately, I have to wrap this up
Yes,
because I have the little one here.
yes,
But
yes.
you guys are all
Thank you.
asking really great questions.
Yep,
Excuse me. I please encourage you to come back and watch next week because we do want to answer these questions. We're just time limited.
absolutely. Yep, yep.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you coming, and if you have any topics that you want for us to consider for future episodes, we have a good deal lined up, but we're always happy to consider others and love to hear from you.
Yes.
Muchas gracias.
Okay. Adios. Bye,
Adios.
guys.
Bye.